sorry. That was, yeah, we put background music in the Pokedex app that I'll be showing you guys today. Finally finished it up though. But good grief, that's loud. I need to turn down the volume on my computer. But what's up guys, Forrest Knight here. You're watching iDev Journey episode 19. Now if you just came for the Firebase and GeoFire tutorial, which by the way is going to be like at least a 2-part tutorial where we create a PokeFinder / PokeRadar app, where in this tutorial we're going to kind of go over the map aspect of things and then setting up Firebase and GeoFire. And then in the future videos of iDev Journey we're going to finish the app, you know, step by step. But if you just came for the tutorial, yeah, put a timestamp either in description or in a comment down in the comment section. So check that out if you just want the tutorial. But if you want to stay, before we get to that, I'm going to show you, talk about where I am in my iOS development journey, as well as go over the Pokedex app. For the record, that Firebase and GeoFire app is a PokeFinder app. So this was kind of like our prerequisite, is making that the Pokedex app. Just Pokemon, that's why, Pokemon. But as for the update, I am currently, of course, working on the Firebase and GeoFire PokeFinder app, and I've gotten down the maps, I've gotten down everything that I go over later in this course, which is the maps, Firebase setup, GeoFire and whatnot, finished the Pokedex app, and there's a slight announcement. You know, I said I'm going to build my social network app. My brother just called me this morning, and he proposed an idea of a different app that, in all honesty, I like better. And he's actually going to be building a full-on business plan and writing down a whole lot of things of what he wants in the app and just planning out basically everything to dish off to me so I can create it. And he already basically runs a business right now. So I don't know if I'm going to fulfill the other social network app I told you about, or if I'm going to go with this one, or if I'm just going to create the other ones. It's just, I need to decide before like the next week or two, because that's when I'm going to start the Firebase social network app anyway. So it's a lot to think about. It's just, there's nothing set in stone. I may still go with the other one, like I said, but I just figured I'd document this and just let you guys know that there's some thoughts going around in my head with what I want to do with my first real app. So yeah, big news, big news. But let's go ahead and check out this Pokedex app that I turned the volume down on so you won't be blasted. But I'll show you the volume, don't worry. So let me set this up and let's move on over to the computer. Alright guys, so here we are. As you can see with the Pokedex app, we have model view controller, similar to last time. We have resources, utilities, and whatnot. But all of this code is on GitHub, and you'll notice, as mentioned in last video, that maybe I didn't add so much in that Pokemon Swift. But you'll notice that I put a lot of comments in there because, as I would like to repeat this because it's pretty important, I write the code and that helps me learn. And then right after I write that little bit of code, I write in outlets. Well, that's not really that much of a description, so let's come over to VC. So it sets number of items in the section. Although this is pretty self-explanatory because down here it says number of items in section. If I write it once in code, write it twice, or the second time in English, and then afterwards I kind of talk about it with you guys, it helps me remember a whole lot more. So it's just something that I may implement in like a real world app, who knows, but it helps me learn as of right now, so I'm going to stick with it. And it's not like it hurts any code, it's just a comment. But let's go on to the simulator. Here it is. And here's the Pokedex simulator. Let me see if I can make this window a little bit bigger. There we go. So here's a Pokedex simulator. And alright, let me turn this all the way up just so you guys can hear it on there. Alright, enough of that. Alright, I like Pokemon, what can I say? But as you can see, as last time, we have the search bar up here. And just like last week, everything's still the same. If I backspace, the keyboard disappears. If I search, the keyboard disappears. And of course, if I type in J, any Pokemon with the letter J in it will come up. But I still haven't figured out, I don't know if it's just a simulator thing or if there's another way to do it. The way I already explained that in the last video, but when I hit X, the keyboard doesn't disappear. That's my main problem. So if you can help with that, that'd be great. I went over it last week, so I'm not going to go over it again. But the main difference between this app and last week's app is instead of when we hit this, it just shows like Bulbasaur, or if we hit this, it shows Charizard. All it would do is just show the name of the Pokemon. And that was like the first step to make sure our segue works, the VC is good to go, and it's all connected and whatnot. But this week, the final application, well, final for this learning purposes, let me tap on Charmeleon. So we have bio and moves, and I said it's done for learning purposes because we didn't implement moves, because that would have been the same exact thing as we were doing on this side. We would just be learning it again, but we've already done it multiple times, meaning we use a Poke API, and we implemented our own assets, images and whatnot. But for the Poke API, it had the type of each Pokemon, the name of each Pokemon, the defense, height, weight, ID, base attack, and its evolution process and levels and all that good stuff. What we did for each thing, so for type, for weight, for height, for defense, we looked into the API, the JSON data, converted that JSON data using a JSON converter just so we could read it easier. And using their types, like what their value names and whatnot, and their types of values, so like integer or string or whatever it may be, we were able to take that whenever we click on Charmeleon and take Charmeleon's information like fire, weight, and all that good stuff and put it into this view controller, into this UI. But as you can see, here's our main storyboard. Instead of having, so we had this VC last time, instead of just having a simple Ivysaur label down here with a blue background, we have the same bar up here basically, so it's a clean transition from one to the other when we're in the actual app. And then we implemented this bio moves. As you saw, moves, we didn't do anything with that, or else I think if we were to do that, we would have created another VC, maybe? I don't know, don't quote me on that. But I'm still learning. So UI image view, we implemented that. We implemented 3 of those actually, because this is the Ivysaur, for example. And this would be an Ivysaur, and this would be a Venusaur. And then, of course, we have the type, just like y'all saw. And then also, you see how this is a box right here? This is where the description is supposed to be. Right now, see, I have 2 spaces in there, just like everything else, and I don't understand why it's not working. But with this description box, I did implement a minimum font scale. Didn't want it to be too big. And I also implemented lines. So this has a maximum of 10 lines, or yeah, it has 10 lines that I am able to use. And there's a whole lot of other things, constraints and whatnot, and we threw them all in stack views. What we did was threw this and this in a stack view, and then this and this, like height and Pokedex in a stack view, and then type and defense in a stack view, like those across from each other, and then we threw each of those into stack view just to make it implement better. So for example, see, we have that stack view, and within that we have that's within this stack view. It just helps with spacing and whatnot. And then come on over to here. So as you can see right here, it's function update UI. We have a whole lot of other attack label information. So we have all these IB outlets, weak var name label, main image, description label, and that, as you can see by the names, is relative to the UI that you just saw. Let me bring that up. So I'm going to go Bulbasaur, type, height, weight, defense, type, height, weight, defense. That's how it correlates, and it's connected to that VC. And as we come down, you can see where we update the UI. So whenever we click on Ivysaur, it'll bring up Ivysaur's attack, defense, height, weight, type, and description. Like I said, all of this information is on GitHub. I'm not here to teach you about this Pokedex app. I'm here to teach you about the Firebase and GeoFire here in a second. So let me go ahead and close this down. I'm going to go ahead and run the PokeFinder app and go through the Firebase and select GeoFire. Well, first, before we go into that, we have to have something to attach it to. So we'll have to create the Xcode, and you can attach Firebase to that immediately. But what we're going to do is create the map first. So basically, the PokeFinder app is for Pokemon Go. You know how in Pokemon Go, if you've ever played it, or even in maps, you're walking around the map, you're like a little blue dot on the map and you can walk around and whatnot. That's basically what we're going to be making, and there's a few things that you have to implement in order to get it working right. So that's what we're going to do first, and then we're going to implement Firebase, GeoFire, and that'll be it. Alright, so I had to come on over to my desk because holding my laptop in front of the camera just wasn't doing it. So I'm here, at my desk. We're going to go over the PokeRadar app, PokeFinder app, whatever you want to call it. And I've already made it. I'm not going to code it with you guys. It's really not that much that I've done. It's just like a few UI things. I'll show you. But right after this is when we're going to go over the Firebase and GeoFire, because a lot of people are here. They're just looking. A lot of y'all are just looking to implement Firebase and GeoFire into your application that you've already created. So not necessarily make the PokeRadar app. So let's just go ahead and talk about what I've done so far. After all, this is iDev journey, so I must do that. So over here, we're at the main.storyboard. All we did was a map view, set the constraints, and a button, and made that button a graphic, as you can see over on the assets, if this wishes to load. We have 151 Pokemon, and we have, 151 Pokemon and a few other apps, a few other pictures, I mean. And that's it for the main.storyboard. It's just the button, set constraints, map view, set constraints, and that's it. View controller is the only other file that we've messed with. And as you can see, we've imported MapKit. We made sure our view controller has map view delegate, location manager delegate. We have our variables and constants and whatnot. And then inside our view to load function, we have a user tracking mode for our map view. And that, as you can see here, the map follows the user's location. So you know how when you're driving and you're using a GPS, or if you're using Apple Maps or Google Maps, you stay in the center, and so basically the screen follows you around instead of you like driving, like you just see the blue dot go off the screen, you have to pan. That's what this is. So it follows the blue dot, it follows you on the map in the application. And then we had to create this location auth status right here for this function, location auth status, or we created this in order to implement inside of here, is how I should word it. And only find location when map is in use. So basically, we implemented that. So if you close out and it's just running as a background task, it isn't draining your battery by finding your location. It only finds your location when the application is open. And we have to ask, can we access your location? And that's why we implemented this right here. And this is location manager. In order to do this, we had to implement location manager function, and that's what all of this is for, in order for us to prompt, can we access your location? And let's keep moving on. Another function, center map on location, it determines the size of the region shown on the map. So basically, when you open up Apple Maps, you'll notice how, you know what, let me open it up right now. You'll notice how like it opens it up to a certain, let me just open up Google Map. So it opens it up, I'm on that, but it opens it up to make sure it's that big. Sorry about this, guys. Let me get that focused in there. But it opens up to make sure it's that big, right? See wherever the dot is, and then the screen is that big. You can set it so it opens up that big, or it opens up this big, or it opens up this big. You know, that's basically what that is. Let me get me focused. And that's basically what that is. So right here, I just remembered that this is an awfully small screen. You may not be able to see the phone, but I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So it determines how far away you are, how much of the map you can see when you open the app. So let's move on from that. Tells map to center. So this, we'll probably implement a button with this. You know how, I'm not going to go back on the phone because you may not be able to see it, but you know how you can hit that button and it centers, it goes back to you being center? That's what this is, and it just tells the map to center you. And what we also implement is make sure it doesn't auto center when you're trying to pan. So if you're trying to pan over, like you're here, and you're trying to pan over to see a Pokemon over there, you don't want it to auto center, or else you won't be able to pan, and that would be a hassle. And then down here on our map view function, replace blue dot with ash for user location. Like you know how on that application you just saw blue dot that represented me? Instead, like this, let's go back to assets. Let me just show you. It's an image of Ash Ketchum if you're familiar with Pokemon. Ash right here. This is you basically in the application, and that's what we did. And that's basically it. That's what we did. We have an IB action for our Pokeball button. We have up here our IB outlet for our map view. And like I said, yeah, that's it. So now let's implement Firebase into our application. I assume you already have a Firebase account. And ignore these PokeRadars. I'm just going to create another one named PokeRadar. These aren't hooked up to anything. But PokeRadar. So you want to create it, you know, whatever helps you remember. So right here, it's named PokeRadar. So I just named this PokeRadar. Makes sense. Now that you've created that, we want to add Firebase to your iOS app. And then bundle. So as you can see, iOS bundle ID. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Come over to your PokeRadar project, and this is what you want to copy, Command C, and then paste, Command V, right there. These are optional, so we're not going to worry about that now. And then Xcode instruction, whatever, we download Google Service Info.plist. And as you see, it's 2 inside parentheses because I already have a few Google Service-Info.plist in my downloads folder. What I'm going to do is drag this on over to my desktop. I'm going to delete this one, move to trash. I'm going to rename this so it doesn't have that 2 in there. And then I'm going to drag it into my application. And make sure it's checked just like that. Finish. And what I'm going to click on, this application isn't going to go live. I've yet to decide if I'm going to black out any of these IDs. But as you can see, all of these IDs, the values over here, you do not want to show those to anybody or else they can access your app in Firebase, whatever it is. So this isn't going to be a live application, so I don't really know if I care that much, but you guys will see. But basically, this is our info.plist, our Google service info.plist, and this is good to go. What we're going to have to do now is download our pod file into our project folder. So you're going to open terminal. I have iTerm because, well, it looks cool. I'm going to make this bigger for you guys. And then I'm going to change directory, CD, into desktop, course apps. What I'm doing is typing the first little bit of the word and hitting tab so it finishes the word for me and I don't have to type off the whole thing. Change directory in there, ls, in order to see what's in there. So I have my PokeRadar right here. So I'm going to go into my PokeRadar. And see, I have PokeRadar and then PokeRadar.xcode project. What I'm going to do is pod init. That's initialize my pod. And then, as we'll see, a pod file. Yep, a pod file is in here now. We're going to open up that pod file in whatever text editor you wish. I'm just going to open it up in Vim because it's really not that big of a deal. If I was going to do a lot of editing into this file, then I'd probably open it up in something else because you can't come over here. You can't click. I'm trying to click right here. You can't click. You have to go like this and make sure you hit I in order to insert. It's just, I don't really like Vim, but for these purposes, it's fine. So what we're going to do is over back on our Firebase console, continue, copy this pod Firebase core. So you can see right here. It says create pod file if you don't have it. That's what we did. Open your pod file and add this. That's what we're doing. So done deal. Let me get back out of that. And now we have our proper pod file. And what we're going to do is hit escape a couple times, colon X, and then enter. And what that does is saves our pod file. And what do we want to, and we want to pod install. So pod, whoops. If I know how to type, pod install. This may take a while, but we're going to have to implement one more thing after this, and then Firebase will be attached to our application.
4 pounds of brisket's about to go in the oven.
Nice.
Woo!
Now that we have pod file installed, let's come on back over to this. You'll see, first off, let me close the Xcode project. And then what I'm going to want to do is open PokeRadar.xc workspace because you don't want to use your project file anymore. So in order to really concrete that in your head, let me exit out and come back in Xcode. You see how this is white, this is white, this is white? Those are workspaces. The blue ones are project files, or projects. What you want to do is use your workspaces from here on out and don't even worry about the project file or whatever it's called anymore. As you can see, we have our pod file and all that. It's good to go. We're going to come into, not our view controller, we're going to come into app delegate, import Firebase. Let me just see if it pops up. Yep, Firebase. And then we're going to add in down here, FIR app.configure. And this will allow everything to communicate properly. So you have to implement that. This won't work without this, and you're only importing this in order to use this. So make sure you do both of those. And then save, and that's it for Firebase. Now let's move over to GeoFire. So installing GeoFire onto your application is very, very, very simple. You can come on over, so this is the, it's on GitHub, it's open source, so you can adjust it if you need to. But as you can see, it's Objective-C, don't you worry about that, it'll be just fine, because we're in Swift, as you know. But GeoFire for iOS, you know, there's some tutorials of how to download GeoFire right here. Downloading GeoFire for iOS using GeoFire with Swift, so it kind of tells you that. I want to take you on a pretty simple way to install GeoFire, and I'm going to leave what I'm going to type in our pod file in the description below, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What we're going to do is go back into our pod file that we put a pod Firebase. You know what I'm talking about? We had to initialize the pod and then vim pod file and then install pod install. We're going to go back into that. So let me come on over to that directory, that project. I think that's what it's called. Yep. All right. So we're going to vim into pod file, and we're going to hit I to insert. We're going to bring it right down under here. So pod. I got to look at it to make sure I'm typing in correctly. I wrote it over here. Pod GeoFire, and then get little arrow HTTPS. I'm just going to type it in. I'm not going to read it. And that's it right there. And yes, I know I was looking down at my keyboard when I was typing, but that's because I have to put in the dashes and the lines and all that stuff. So just don't give me a hard time, okay? But and then what we're going to do is colon. Well, no, we're not. We're going to hit escape. We're going to do colon X to save it. And now we saved it. Now we're going to do pod install. Just like we did before, pod install. It's not going to make anything extra. It's just going to basically overwrite what you just had. And since you didn't change anything, you only added things, it's good to go. And then after pod install, what are we going to do? We can get out of this. We're going to want to open up that workspace. So PokeRadar. And then where are we at? Let's come over to pods directory. Within that pods directory, we're going to go to Firebase database, frameworks, and then Firebase database framework. You're going to click on that. Then over here under target membership, you'll see GeoFire. Check that, build, because if you come over, what we're going to do is come over to, view controller. We're going to import GeoFire. If you didn't build it, it wouldn't recognize that GeoFire was already checked off and good to go. Now it'll read GeoFire. Just like that. That should not be there. There we go. And let's just test it out, make sure it works. We can go ahead. What do I want to do? GeoFire. This is just to test it out, see if the bridging works and whatnot. And let's build it. Build succeeded. Looks good to me. And that's how you install GeoFire into your Xcode application. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And until next time, have a good one.